So last July we launched System 2, and it's an 800 meter long system with a span of 500 to 600 meters. But this is System 3 and it will be 3 times bigger. So we are going to 2.5 kilometers of length and a span of something like 1.8 kilometers. So it will be huge. If you see it in comparison to System 2, System 3 will dwarf System 2. So if you're impressed with our catch of System 2, then just wait until we get plastics with this system. It will be awesome.
We know we have something big to tackle with regards to the design, but that's part of the challenge. It is definitely a lot of pressure because we do have a system and it works. It's not anymore about proving technology, but now it's really making sure we meet objectives and making sure scaling up is actually the right way forward with this design. So it's other level again of perfection, I would say.
It's February 2022 and it's for the first time since a period of lockdown here in the Netherlands that we can actually come together again, have some fun time, but also discuss the bigger project and do some exercises to understand what's ahead of us this year. And what's ahead of us is actually System 3. So we're playing around with Lego to simulate the operation, to get a bit more feeling about what's ahead of us when we move to the third quarter this year, I expect. To date, we've caught 55 tons of plastic, which is good, and it's definitely contributing to cleaner oceans. But this next step is really going to amplify that a lot, so we're going to clean more, but it's also going to be that essential step we need to take to scaling up our operations and therefore increasing our impact further.
So when it comes to the development of our ocean cleanup technology, our key performance indicator is really the cost per kilogram of plastic removed from the water. Because essentially what we could do is right now, with our current system, you could already clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. But it wouldn't be a very smart thing to do because it would just be very uneconomical. It's really expensive because you just need so many cleanup systems. And the thing is that the cost of the cleanup is completely driven by the amount of vessels that you need. So it's all about limiting the amount of vessels that you need per area covered. So that's why it's so important that we're going to go big now with System 3, where our aim is to produce the blueprint for the scale-up, for the fleet of cleanup systems. And our current modeling is showing that deploying 10 of these systems should be enough to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
So if you see, System 2 is written as System 002. And that comes from a bit of a history at the Ocean Cleanup. When we initially started the designing of our system, where we're also looking at passive versus active, the modeling then shows that we may need 100-fold of these systems to clean up all the gyres in the world. Now, with the recent upgrades to an active propelled system and also the engineering we've done looking forward, we've changed System 3 into System 03. So we actually ditched one of the zeros. And the reason doing this is because our models now show that we don't need 100-fold systems anymore to clean up all the gyres in the world. And that really gives us something to look forward to in the future. Now, what we've learned over the period of harvesting, which has continued with System 2, is during the winter time, as we expected, that operations got a bit more challenging due to the increase in the weather conditions. And that meant that we needed to time our extractions more carefully. So we did that to a certain extent quite well, but we also learned that if you get the timing right or you're not quick enough in your turnaround, that you have some weather downtime. So that was a first significant learning. What we also had was during the periods out there, we also noticed that we had some encounters with marine life. And the good part was that we saw that our environmental management plan worked well. We saved the majority of the animals there. We also noticed that we caught a few animals, and after careful necropsy and interviews with experts on the outcome of those necropsies, we learned that animals were actually lethargic or ill, and some of them even quite ill because they had quite some plastics in their stomach. So I think the learning there is, the plans we have are working well. We do see sometimes when animals are in the system that the only mechanism to get them out is to flush them out with the plastics as well. And the fortunate part is that the animals survive. The unfortunate part is that we lose, of course, the plastic we've harvested. But we've also seen, thirdly, that animals which are ill or sometimes near dead, that they do act like plastic, so it's almost inevitable that a few of them enter into your system. So that does mean we need to think this through further, how to optimize that part. And another learning was that, our geniuses, I call them, from the computational modeling team, they've developed a model which allows us to steer towards the areas of high density plastic. We've actually noticed that those models are quite accurate. But we've also noticed that we need to get the decision making correct in which area to deploy at the start. Take into account the weather conditions that are then known, because if you are operating the areas of low density plastic, as you can imagine, the outcome is less satisfactory as if you would be deploying in the areas of high density plastic.
I will highlight it. It is similar to the small
Now and then we realize that we have this one problem, this one big problem standing in the way of our success. It is this one thing to tackle before you can make the next step change in bringing in big amounts of plastic. So instead of having one person spending a couple of months on trying to solve this problem, we put a lot of people in one room together. And we basically lock the door, throw away the key, and the message is, you do not get out until this problem is solved. So today is day 3. So we have a big group of people focused on tackling this one problem of overtopping for the system.
For System 2, we have observed offshore that plastic sometimes escape by overtopping, which is really the plastic making a jump over the floats. So we want to solve that.
Each one of our hothouses has actually had a good outcome. So this effort, while it does feel super annoying at the time, has proven to lead to some successes and things going right. So
the outcome of the hothouse is now we do have 5 concepts shortlisted, and we now have the action to really look into a clear planning of how to develop those 5 concepts. Some we are going to test them directly on System 2, so because of course we have a system in the water, so it's a great opportunity to actually test those concepts. And it's not like we are just removing a system and putting another one, we are doing transition. And it's really good to do that because that's how we actually learn step by step. And one of the learning we had was that if you change everything, you don't know what you improved and what you haven't improved. So what we're doing now is we're changing one thing at a time, and that's also how we make sure that we have a working system all along.
So what we're going to do is we are continuous with System 2 operations. In parallel, we're engineering and manufacturing System number 3 components, continuously getting the learnings from the field into the design. And the first step we're going to make is adding a new retention zone. So that's the bottom part where the plastics actually enter the system. We're going to design first the new retention zone and add that to the existing operations out there, which we are then going to turn that System 2/A. Also then what we'll have ongoing is the production of the wing sections, the outer ends of the system. And these will include upgrades, which are related to the integrity of the system, the performance in the field, but also we're going to increase the depth from 3 to 4 meters. And System 2/B will then be the new retention zone, but we're going to add the new wing sections, but remain in an operational configuration of 800 meters. So once we get that all under our belt, we're going to progress to what we call System 2/C, which means we go from 800 to 1600 meters length of these wing sections. And then run a new test campaign as well to make sure we are still meeting our performance requirements there. Now the final step we'll take, and then the system becomes System 0-3, is we're going to add another section, I should say, of 800 meters, meaning the total length gets around 2.5 kilometers, including the opening of the retention zone. And with the increase of size, we need to introduce a third vessel into our operations, because with such a large system and with such an amount of plastics we're going to extract, the amount of plastics which we get on deck and need to transport to shore will increase. And that third vessel is basically going to allow us to do continuous operations in the field. So every 2 weeks, one vessel will be relieved by another, meaning that the system is harvesting continuously throughout the year, whilst plastics are being shipped to shore by the vessels departing the field. And once they come back to the field, they of course bring new supplies, new crews, and the next vessel can be relieved. And then after a thorough test campaign there, we hope to be fully operational with a blueprint and can progress to the design of the new system next to it.
Over here they are now making the retention zone for System 3. That's the first thing that will be shipped to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
This is not something you just pick out of your pocket. This is a lot of handsmanship. You have been very focused. This is not as easy as it seems.
It's our mission to save the oceans and to save marine life. So it might seem very strange that we end up at a fishing company that make nets to catch fish and do business with them. But in a way we are doing the same thing, and that we're going out to sea to catch something. And what better way than to ask a fisherman that has been catching fish his whole life. Now we are not catching fish, we are catching plastics. One of the big differences is that we go really slow. We go with 1.5 knots, so fish can just easily swim into the system and swim away again. A trawl goes way faster, and also there's no escape possibility from a trawl. And over here they have a lot of experience producing nets, ropes, making knots. So this is the best place to go to get a system that will last in the ocean for a long time, and that will enable us to catch all the plastics in the ocean. This is where they have the expertise, this is where they have the production facility, this is where they know how to handle the materials, how to make all the stitchings, how to make all the knotting. This is the place to be.
And then we have to take this line just a little bit forward. So
Murnal Fishery, on the division I'm working at, is for trawling. So what we are doing, we are trawling to catch fish and sustainably harvest the fish. That's what we try to do. And now we are gonna trawl for plastic instead, but we're letting go of the fishes. So it's way opposite than what we do in fishery. We see for a long time that a lot of what we found at our coastline in Norway, but now also we see from ocean cleanup, that we catch a lot of and get a lot of fish net ropes and buoys and stuff, which is clearly from the fishing industry. And so we acknowledge that we are a part of the problem, but we also now want to be a part of the solution. So I think, yes, we are part of the problem, but we need to harvest fish for the population of the world, but we also want to do as much as we can, at least. So I think by us being involved here, this is at least one step.
Of course, the whole reason why the ocean cleanups exists, why we're doing this cleanup, is to maximize the amount of good that we do. And there's two sides of that. There is maximizing the performance of the cleanup, but also minimizing any possible negative side effect that the operation may have, which relates to the emissions of the vessels, as well as possible encounters with marine life. Now, on the emissions side, at this point in time, we are compensating for all the carbon emissions that our vessels emit. And this is important, but at the same time, we also think it's still important to keep pushing to reduce the amount of fuel that the vessels require to operate. And next to that, when it comes to bycatch, what we see is that System 2 is actually performing exceptionally well. About 99.8% of what we catch is plastic, so that's a really good ratio. However, still, for that last 0.2%, we keep pushing to try and minimize that with System 3.
System 2 was good, System 2 worked, and even today we are getting plastics out of the ocean. But System 3, so much bigger, so much better. The quantities of plastics we're going to get from the ocean will be huge. The piles of plastic that System 2 brought in, those were impressive. I can't wait to see what this system is going to bring back.